Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 24 playthrough of the New York Yankees. We are about midway through the 2025 season, and after two consecutive division titles, two consecutive trips to the ALCS, the 2025 season has been quite challenging for the Yankees. You can see we've got a losing record right now. We are only 4 games out in the AL East, which is a tight division, and we're also 4 back for the wild card right now. Our pitching staff has been just as good as last season when we had the best pitching staff in the American League. That's once again the situation here. We're first in the AL in runs against. But our offense has been pretty rough. Right now we rank 9th in the American League in runs scored. You can see not a lot of high batting averages on the team for the Yankees. Right now we're currently scouting out the trade market a bit to see if maybe there's something we can do at first or third place. Trey Sweeney's been real disappointing in his second season. And Anthony Rizzo has kind of been as expected after we brought him back at a discounted price after declining a team option and letting him hit free agency. But combined, those are the two obvious areas where I think we can try to get better. Would certainly think that Aaron Judge over time is going to get his batting average up over 239, although he's still tied for the team lead in home runs at 19 right now with last year's AL Rookie of the Year, Austin Wells. So to me, first and third are the obvious places that we're looking to potentially make an upgrade over the next several weeks before we get to the trade deadline. And we'll also be working on the amateur draft in about a week and seeing if we can bring some talent into our system. Although, as I talked about at the end of our last episode, not particularly impressed with the depth of talent available in the amateur draft this season. And the month of July has not gone well for the Yankees. We took a series against Colorado 2-1, but then we were swept on the road by the Angels in 3 games. Just lost a series to Atlanta 2-1, although we have beaten the Phillies on the start of a 3-game set at home. But you can see the record stands at 43-47, and we've now slipped to 7.5 out in the division. So I still think this team is more than good enough to end up in the playoffs. I think we've just been very unlucky, which you can see by the -5 Pythagorean differential and the fact that we've got the best run differential in the entire AL East. We should be, 48-42 instead of 47-43. We've got an awful record in one-run games. So hopefully we will get better over the second half of the year. Would certainly love if we can add some talent over the next 3 weeks to potentially give our offense a boost as more and more players get added to the trade block and or teams get more and more desperate to let go of some contracts. So we're going to continue monitoring that, but right now we're ready for the first-year player draft. And after having the best record in baseball last year, Yankees going to be picking right at the end of the first round and the end of every round. The draft pool, not really all that impressive. Looking at position players, we only see about 15, 20 players who are 3-star potential or higher, according to our scout. And looking at the pitchers, it's even more grim. There's only about 15 players who are 2.5-star potential or higher. So not a very deep draft, and we're not really expecting there to be a difference maker waiting for us at number 34. And not that there was a ton of talent at the top of the list of pitchers, but you can see here at the end of the first round, not even a 3-star potential player left according to our scout. And there's only 4 3-star potential batters left. We'll take a look at those guys quick for purposes of the video here, and then we'll do a little bit of a deeper dive, find out what our scout thinks before we make a decision. But those 4 players are right fielder Micah Matthews. Looks like he could have a decent bat. 19-year-old, kind of old for a high school senior. Don't love the low work ethic, the low loyalty, the greed. Competent outfielder, but nothing special. Not the most exciting prospect in the world. Not that we're expecting the most exciting prospect in the world at number 34 in the draft, but Vaughn Necker, third baseman. Like the bat a little bit. Not a bad bat at all for a third baseman. Plus power, potentially, both in the gaps and home runs, and potentially plus contact and plus eye. Not great in terms of his overall skills, but looks like he could be a above average hitter. Not great defensively either. Third base if he's going to play in the infield, or first base at 6'5" are his positions. He could also play left field or right field for you, so not the worst prospect in the world. Catcher Jarrett Sabal, decent home run bat with some pop. Don't love the fact that he's only average in terms of both of his defensive ability and his arm. Not a horrible prospect either. And last but not least, first baseman Nolan Schubart, 21-year-old out of the University of Michigan. Pretty decent looking potential bat, not a ton of speed, doesn't bring much to the table defensively. And I don't always show the making of the sausage as far as the draft in the videos, but I do like to go look at the batting potential, see if there's anyone who stands out with their contact potential. You can see not a ton of guys with great contact here. Micah Matthews and Vaughn Neckar, a couple of guys that we talked about. Also, Carter Smith, a shortstop, has really good gap power potential and a little bit of speed. Not a horrible prospect. Decent defensively. Looks like he could have a decent bat. High work ethic and intelligence, which will both contribute to him potentially reaching his full potential. So he's kind of an interesting prospect there. Power potential. Jaden Hilton stands out a bit. We've talked about Matthews. We've talked about Sabal. So some familiar names there. You can see that Vaughn Necker still pretty well balanced. And the other thing that's worth doing from time to time is, and you can find some good value in the drafts at time if you do this, if you're looking at batting potential and you pivot on over to your pitchers and you just see, but we want to see the batting potential with the pitchers. You may sometimes be able to find a surprise player, and actually there kind of looks like there could be a couple this year in Cam Caminiti and Boston Kellner, who both look like they might not have horrible bats. Caminiti certainly doesn't look like he's going to be a big-time starter, but does look like he's got a potentially interesting bat. Could definitely play a corner outfield for you. 6'2", he could also play first base. Boston Kellner, another guy who has a decent potential arsenal with 4 pitches, but not a big-time superstar pitching prospect. May certainly be better as a batting prospect. Has the ability to play just about anywhere. Don't feel great about playing him in center field or at shortstop, but can play just about any position on the field defensively. So those guys are interesting-ish prospects, and then you can obviously flip things also and look for pitching potential of your batters and see if maybe there's some hidden diamond in the rough there. Vaughn Neckar, the third baseman, actually has decent stuff, but not going to impress anyone too much with his movement or his control, but can sometimes be a good way to find a prospect who may be being marketed as a pitcher and he's actually better as a hitter, or vice versa. So definitely spend some time looking at those kinds of things when I'm making my decisions. Don't necessarily put them all into the videos. It's been a long time since I think I've kind of walked through this little brief summary of one of the little ways to perhaps find some value in the draft. So figured I would do it today. And our scouting director recommends that we go with the catcher, Jarrett Sabal. I do like his bat. He's going to hit some home runs. He's going to walk a decent amount. I just don't love having a 50-50 guy defensively as a catcher. He could play left field, could play first base, but not a ton of options with him. I'm probably leaning towards a different direction, but I do thank our scout for his assessment. I kind of like Vaughn Necker, the third baseman, who's got a plus bat, nice personality, but he just doesn't bring a ton to the table defensively. And that's why I think I'm leaning towards the shortstop Carter Smith. Our scout doesn't see him as having the same type of overall potential, but definitely looks like he could have a plus bat. He is going to strike out a decent amount, but other than that, could be above average in everything and well above average in gap power. Has enough speed to leg out some doubles and triples with that gap power. Good personality for developing with a high work ethic and intelligence. And he's got a glove where he could play just about anywhere in the infield. Is he a gold glover anywhere? Probably not. But he could definitely play second, third, short, and at 6'4" could certainly play first base if you'd want him there. Also, could basically play anywhere in the outfield, although certainly would prefer not to be playing him in center field. So we're going to go ahead and draft him with the 34th pick in this year's draft, bring him onto our system. Think he's got the ability to potentially be a pretty interesting player in a few years. And here late in the second round, kind of interesting that Matthews, Sabal, and Schubert are all still out there. As far as looking at the pitchers, you can still see Caminiti and Kellner. So I think maybe one of those pitchers who I'd consider moving into a position player is definitely in the mix here in the second round. I'm assuming that our scout is going to go right back to Sabal, since that was his recommendation a round ago. Yeah, he's still fixated on Sabal. Not a horrible prospect. I just don't love the average defense, but that batting profile for a catcher is definitely not horrible. And I think here in the second round, we are going to go with one of the pitchers to convert to being an everyday player, Cam Caminiti. Great personality, definitely has the ratings to have a bit above average major league bat. Don't love him defensively, but certainly could be a corner outfielder or a first baseman. Boston Kellner, very similar profile. I like his defensive versatility a little bit better. I don't think he's as good in the outfield, but he's better in the infield. Another guy who can play just about any position. Also has a really good personality with high leadership and intelligence. The only thing he lacks is a high work ethic. Otherwise, he's got a perfect personality. So I think we may bring Kellner into our organization here in the second round. And if we get him signed, we'll turn him into an everyday player probably rather than a pitcher, although we may in rookie ball let him kind of play both ways for a couple of years before deciding where he has to go. But I think there's just a lot more potential for him as a batter to potentially become a major league player. And here late in the third round, Caminiti is gone, but Matthews, Sabal, and Schubert are all still around. I'm starting to think that there's pretty good value with the catcher Sabal here in the third round. We've talked about the fact that I don't love his average ability and his average arm. Perhaps that's something where we can unlock some unknown potential in the minors. And if he was an above-average defensive catcher with the potential really good home run power and potentially an above-average eye, there's definitely the opportunity for him to have some value there. Micah Matthews, also an interesting bat. I just don't love the personality there. And then Nolan Schubart, just don't love the lack of defense, the lack of speed, but a decent bat also. But among these three guys, After our scouts been recommending Jarrett Sabal for 3 rounds, we're finally going to throw him a bone and pick the guy in the 3rd round. So we've made it through the draft now. Take a look at the All-Star teams. Garrett Cole, although the record of 5-7 is not impressive, All-Star pitcher a year after winning the Cy Young Award. Carlos Rodon, who I would think is in a strong battle to be the Cy Young Award winner this year. 9-6 record, 154 strikeouts, 2.79 ERA. He is the one of the top pitchers in the American League at this point. You see probably in a battle with Dylan Cease, perhaps Shane Bieber for Cy Young Award at this point. So 2 All-Star starting pitchers, as well as our closer, Michael King, who's 4-4 with 24 saves and a 2.56 ERA on the team. So 3 All-Star pitchers overall for the Yankees, given the excellent pitching staff we've had this season. That is not a surprise. Only a couple of all-stars among our position players. Austin Wells, last year's Rookie of the Year, hitting .252 with 22 homers on the team. Leads the team with those 22 home runs. And Aaron Judge hitting .246 with 21 home runs. Looks like he's going to be the starting right fielder once again in the American League, for the American League in the All-Star game. So 5 All-Stars for the Yankees, although the record stands at 44-47, 7.5 games back with just a game today until we get to the All-Star break. And we did get a win in that final game before the All-Star break against the Phillies. So we're going into the All-Star break 45-47. Certainly not the season that the Yankees had anticipated. 6.5 back in the division, although we have won 4 in a row at this point. And we're 3.5 behind for the wild card. So definitely going to have a big push needed in the second half of the season to make the playoffs for a 3rd consecutive year with these Yankees. And the Yankees were playing really well heading into the All-Star break with 4 straight wins. We've now won 3 in a row after the All-Star break, taking a series at Kansas City. So finally have the record back above 500, 3.5 out in the division. Still in 4th place, however. And we are now 2.5 out for the wild card. So definitely been playing a little better of late. Still think that it wouldn't hurt to bring a little more talent onto this team. Taking a look at our team statistics, still number 1 in the American League with 348 runs allowed. We've moved up 1 spot in the rankings to 8th in runs scored. Still 5 games below our Pythagorean expectations. We should be 53-42, which would put us 1st place in the division. So I don't think we have to overpay just for the sake of making a trade, but definitely would consider bringing on someone who could help us at 3rd base and possibly at 1st base. We are 9-6 here in the month of July, but it's been bad month in April, good month in May, bad month in June, good month in July so far, and that's a pretty good template for being 1 game over 500 on July 21st. And with 10 days to the trade deadline, taking a look at the market and who's available. Last episode, we were talking about Christian Walker, and we have made some offers for him. Haven't come up with a deal yet with the Brewers, but think he would certainly be an upgrade for us at 1st base. And he's also signed next year, so that would keep us from having to go back onto the open market for a 1st baseman. Definitely would be a modest upgrade over Rizzo, but not a huge upgrade, but still would be a useful move for us. And most recently, it looks like the Blue Jays have put Bo Bichette on the trade block. Certainly could play 3rd base for us. The bat is definitely interesting, hitting .297 this year with 16 homers. Don't love the fact that he never walks and he strikes out a ton. I have a feeling the Blue Jays are going to be looking for a lot for him. He's a free agent after this season, but he would certainly be a big upgrade for us at third base over the combination right now that we have out there of Trey Sweeney and Nick Maton. I just don't think we're going to probably be able to pull it off because they're going to be looking for a lot for him, even though he's just a rental, and we don't have a ton of ability to take on salary right now, so we're going to need them to retain a chunk of his salary and also, come up with an offer that we're willing to pay for him, which I think may be unlikely. All right, we've got an offer to put together for Bo Bichette. I don't think it's going to work, and I don't know that I want to give up more than this. We're giving up Higgy, our backup catcher. We've got a couple decent people in AAA, so that's fine. He's hitting just a $183 for us. Has not been a happy reunion with him. Third baseman Trey Sweeney had a nice year for us as a rookie last year. Thought that at age 25, with several more years of control for the Blue Jays, he might be attractive to them, and we'd be putting Bichette right into that spot. The relief pitcher Indigo Diaz, decent prospect, has incredible stuff, just doesn't know where it's going. But he's put up a 0.47 and 1.54 ERA in AAA over the last two seasons. And then to make it work financially, we're including Nestor Cortez, who, like Bo Bichette, is a pending free agent. Cortez has basically worked out of the bullpen for us most of this season. He's been fine. His movement's below average at this point, extreme fly ball tendencies. I think he's going to give up some home runs. He's looking for only a little over 10.5 million at this point for a contract. But I'd be willing to give him up because he's in our pen right now. There is obviously the fear that Rodon, Cole, Sevy, Buehler, or Jameson gets hurt. But even if that were to happen, we still have Yendrys Gomez, who we would slot into the rotation at this point before Cortez. Only 3-6 this season, but his 65 strikeouts in 36 2/3 innings, a 2.70 ERA, 141 batting average against him. So I feel like we've got enough depth if we did have a pitcher injury, even if we lost Cortez. That said, Cashman doesn't even think they'll go for this deal. I would think that the Jays would want to get something for Bichette, and I would say that with Diaz and Sweeney in particular, they are getting some young talent that's cheap and under control. We'll submit it, but I'm not that hopeful. And not surprisingly, the Blue Jays said no way to that proposal. As much as I'd like to upgrade at third, and Bichette would definitely be an upgrade there, I just don't want to totally rip our farm system about to bring him on board. And you can say they did. There was not even one other player that we could add to this deal who would get it done. So they're clearly looking for a lot for Bichette, unfortunately for us. And I'm sure trading him to a divisional rival probably doesn't work in our favor either. So with Bichette pretty unlikely, we've pivoted back to Christian Walker. I think this is pretty unlikely too. We've put the exact same package together. We don't need them to retain any of his contract with Cortez being in the deal. I think they'll probably at least come back with a player who would make the deal work. I tend to think it'll be someone we don't want to get rid of, but it is what it is. I mean, maybe can we make it slightly more attractive to them by keeping a little bit of Cortez contract? Doesn't seem like that really changes the way that they look at it, unfortunately for us, but we'll also keep 20% of Nestor's contract since bringing on Walker is really the only thing that we would want to do. I don't think this will get done either, but I'm trying. And we actually can get the deal done. Higgy, as I said, we've got a replacement for him. Diaz, I don't love the lack of control. He doesn't have a big future in my organization. Cortez is going to be moving on from us anyways, most likely after this season. Definitely don't love giving up Sweeney after the great rookie year he had last season, but he's definitely struggled this year, and you can see his contact power and his eye have all kind of cratered in the eyes of our new scout, and his performance on the field doesn't suggest that he's a big-time player. If we move on from him, third base would end up with Matan, who's hitting even worse at a $152, or potentially Edinson Paulino, the guy that we picked up in the Rule 5 draft. We could pivot him to third base also. And we're also getting closer to the point where we'll have Cabrera and Stanton back, but we're still looking at late August in a best-case scenario for both of them. And it looks like we're waiting to hear about an injury to Dylan Lee also. Maybe I should wait a day on that, although he's been pretty bad for us this year with a 5.04 ERA. I don't really think even if he's hurt whether that would change what we want to do with Cortez. But we might as well wait a day or two to see the other card, so to speak, before we have to decide. Bone spur in his elbow, out 4 to 5 weeks. So he should be back for the playoffs if we want him for the playoffs. Dip down into AAA where we do have some depth at this point, and we can bring Ron Marinaccio back to the team. So not a huge loss for us there. It's been nice having Marinaccio still with some options to help out our bullpen. But we're getting to the point where we're going to have to pull the trigger on this deal, and they're not looking for a ton more in return. Minor league catcher Rafael Flores, a 24-year-old who's playing an A ball, happy to throw him in. We're definitely damaging the depth of our rotation if we have some injuries, but as I've talked about, Gomez is my next choice to go in the rotation now. So that still would leave us with 6 potential starting pitchers that I'm okay with. We're only going to need 4 if we get to the playoffs. Granted, no guarantees that we get to the playoffs at 51 and 48, 2 games back, still in 4th place in the division. But we kind of could use another right-handed bat, and I think that Walker would be an upgrade over Anthony Rizzo at this point. Not that Rizzo might not end up in a DH spot for us against right-handed pitching at least, but I'd love to upgrade at third base. I just don't think that Bichette deal is going to happen. This one's quite honestly more expensive than I want it to be, but we are going to go ahead and pull the trigger. Add in Rafi Flores, and we're going to go ahead and complete the trade with the Brewers. Fans not happy that Cortez left, but fans are happy that Walker went on board. Probably about a push, all things considered. Attendance way down this year. Clearly we're not playing as well on the field, but still have allegedly 100 fan interest, and we cut ticket prices, so it's definitely been disappointing that the fans of the Bronx Bombers have not been coming out to Yankee Stadium as voluminously as I would have hoped. And clearly Mr. Steinbrenner's not going to be happy about that either. We've gone in the wrong direction in terms of getting our attendance up to 46,000, and at 51 and 48, our goals of a championship are teetering at this point. 4th in the division, and we're a game and a half out of the wild card still. So we definitely have work to do. Hopefully the trade will help propel the offense forward for us. So we definitely have some holes to fill with 3 players leaving our major league roster for 1 player. Walker's going to become our starting first baseman. Catcher, I'm leaning towards Siegler, I think. He's hitting 234 with 10 home runs, but I think he's got the best bat of the catchers that we do have in AAA right now. Amaya's been our backup before. He's a little better defensively. He's hitting 289 down there. Maybe we bring Amaya back. Jason DeLay, I don't think, is the answer. Yeah, I think Amaya's a little better than Siegler in terms of his catcher ability and his arm. I guess his catcher ability is a notch higher. The arm is basically even. I'm going to give Siegler a chance. We kind of know what Amaya is at this point. And then the final thing we're going to need to do is promote a pitcher. Got a few options down there. Davy Garcia, 4.06 ERA. He obviously was up with us last year when he was our 5th starter, started 20 games. He certainly would be a downgrade from Nestor Cortez if we do need to pitch him at the major league level as a starter. But for now, he's going to come up and join our bullpen. Actually, I lied. That's not true. I'm going to bring up Justin Wilson instead. Better stuff, better movement. Hasn't been great in Scranton. 5.26 ERA. No, I'm second guessing that, though. Because I'll have to put Davy Garcia back through waivers. If Wilson had been better performing in AAA, I'd be inclined to bring him up, but right now, since I've already promoted Davy Garcia, and I don't think I'd lose him if I put him through waivers, but this is for like a 7th or 8th arm out of the bullpen role. I don't think whoever we have in this slot is going to be critical to our success this year. And Walker is going to take over as our starting first baseman. Still going to have Rizzo in the lineup against righties as our DH. Nick Matan, at least for the time being, is going to slide over and become our everyday third baseman. Don't love putting a guy with a 152 average into that role. But Edinson Paulino, who we had talked about, I don't know that he's going to be any better in that role and any better as a hitter, also being a left-handed hitter. Feel like Matan maybe a little better against right-handed hitting, definitely a little better against left-handed hitting. Neither of these guys has a great bat. I think in a perfect scenario would have loved to bring on Bo Bichette, but just were not willing to pay the premium to pick him up within the division for a 2-month rental for a team that still is very uncertain whether we're going to be making a long playoff run or not. And Bichette obviously would help get us there potentially, but I think the price would just been too high. And of course, the week after we trade away starting pitching depth and Nestor Cortez, number 5 starter, Dre Jameson, going to be out for about 4 weeks with biceps tendonitis. 6-5 with a 2.90 ERA for us this year as our number 5 starter, so he's done a really nice job. Only positive of this is that it will give us an opportunity to see what Yoendris Gomez can do in the rotation. He's obviously been pretty impressive as a reliever for us over the last couple years since he made his major league debut, so I think he can probably give us some help in the rotation for the next month or so while we're waiting for Jameson to get back. Hopefully there won't be any other material pitching injuries. And that injury will allow us to bring Justin Wilson back up also. So Rodon, Cole, Buehler, Severino, and Gomez are going to be the rotation. Taking a look at the bullpen, King still the closer, like Abreu and Phillips as setup men. Marinaccio and the new addition Wilson as relievers, middle relievers, Davy Garcia, and then the lefties Joe Mantiply and Taylor Rogers. So still like our bullpen a lot, still like our pitching a lot in general. And we'll get a chance to see what Gomez can do as a starting pitcher now. And you can't make this up. Christian Walker, the guy that we just brought on to hopefully help jumpstart our offense, broken finger, going to be out for about 5 weeks. He was off to a nice start with us, 6 for his first 13, a couple of doubles, a home run, 462 average, and off the charts OPS. Already put up half a win in terms of WAR in 4 games. So he was definitely sparking our offense, and you can see we're 55 and 48. So the Yankees have been playing really well. We've only lost that 1 game against Texas since the All-Star break. So feel like things had started turning around, and 2 significant injuries in a matter of a couple of days are not optimal. We have moved up to second place in the division, even though we're still 2 games out, have won 9 out of 10, 6 in a row, and we are half a game up on a wild card spot now. So we're not in a horrible position in the standings at this point with 2 months left in the season. But the injury situation, it's going to be till late August till we're getting any help back. Now, the cavalry will be coming in late August with Jameson, Lee, Cabrera, and Stanton all 3 to 4 weeks away, and Walker about 5 weeks away. The big question is going to be, can we have a winning record in the month of August with all of these players on the IL? I think if we have a winning record, even if it's 15 and 14 in August, we're going to be really positioned well for September. The question is, with all of these injuries, whether we can remain competitive and continue playing the good baseball that we've been playing over the last several weeks. And we've got our roster figured out and reconfigured after the injury. We're just, for the fun of it, seeing if we can shop Stanton, retaining 80% of his contract, and even throwing in a decent prospect in Matt Sauer. Still no interest at all in him, so looks like we're going to be stuck with that contract. Who knows what he's going to look like in about 3 or 4 weeks when he gets back off of the IL. But hoping that the Yankees can, as I said, have a winning record in the month of August. If we do that, I'll feel pretty good about our playoff hopes, because the cavalry is coming by the end of August in terms of a lot of these injured players hopefully being healthy and ready to contribute. And July ended up being a really good month for the Yankees, 16-8 record, by far the best month of the year for the Bronx Bombers. We're still 2 games out, 3rd place in the division, 4th in the wild card, so not where we want to be as the calendar turns to August and we're past the trade deadline. Runs scored, we're still 8th. Runs allowed, though, we are 1st in the American League, and you can see we are 1st in the vast majority of pitching categories. Have to hope that we can get this offense jump-started over the last couple of months of the season to be able to put ourselves in position to get back into the playoffs. Michael King was the pitcher of the month, 2-0 record, no ERA, 7 saves, 14 strikeouts in 12 innings, having a really nice year. And Austin Wells, last year's Rookie of the Year, had a big month in July as well, 323 with 9 home runs, got a batting average up to 264. I believe the 27 homers and 64 runs batted in are team leading figures. 27 and 72. Judge with 24 homers and 66 ribbies here. So not the monster type of season that Judge has put up the last 3 years at this point. Does have the average up to 251 now. Good on base percentage, obviously, with his great eye. So hopefully he can continue to improve that batting average over the last couple of months of the season. Because we're going to need some more offense. As we've talked about, we are 3rd in the American League East, 2 games behind the Orioles, half a game behind the Blue Jays, and we're half a game behind the Blue Jays for the final wild card right now, as they've won 4 in a row. So we are on the outside of the playoffs looking in as the calendar has turned to August. but still think that ultimately this Yankees team should end up being in the playoffs. And in contrast to the last two seasons when we've had some pretty significant injuries in the playoffs, 2 years ago we were without Judge throughout the playoffs and Stanton for the ALCS. And last year we were without Stanton throughout the playoffs, and we were without Garrett Cole other than one game. So if we don't have any other significant injuries, and if all of these guys on the IL can get healthy over the next 4 or 5 weeks, we could and would have our best roster of the season as we get into September and try to make a push for the playoffs. So nothing is for certain, but I'm still feeling like ultimately these Yankees are going to be a playoff team. And we'll find out whether or not I am right in that assessment in our next episode. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.